Well, hello there and welcome to the channel. And in this video I'm going to be talking to you about how the garden has progressed over the last year, because it's only been a year since we started planting it up. Yes, that's right. Last year in the spring we were still knocking out all the old rubbish to make way for the new borders. If you see the old the fence behind us, that was all replaced. The old low, not particularly good quality fencing was taken away, and we put in new posts, new rails, so we could open up to the field beyond, because it gives a really lovely borrowed view. And on this side we still had an old well, a partial leylandia hedge. We had to get a chainsaw, cut all that down. Couldn't dig out the roots, but we took it all away and started replanting. So this was the first bed. Last March, April, we started planting that out, and then we did the big border on the side, which we'll show you in a minute. And then this year we're still kind of planting. Only been planting up yesterday. I put some more plants in it. This border at the back, this is all really new. So we're going to show you around, show you some images of what it looked like before, which I've probably already put those on for you to have a look at, and then we go and see what it looks like now. So in just a year from planting from scratch, removing everything and putting all in new stock, this is what we've done. So there you go, how to grow a tropical garden in 1 year. Well, 1 year ago we started planting up this border here. I mean, to be honest with you, this was a little bit of a dumping ground, because when we moved from our last property to this property, all the plants we took with us we stuck in this bed here, which was the old vegetable bed. Let's take a little closer look, because really after 1 year this has been quite impressive, despite being in the partial shade under this massive apple tree, which we had to deal with, one of the first things, because it was a complete mess and needed to be crown lifted to allow light into the garden. So the biggest and most impressive thing we've got here is the old Japanese hardy banana, Musabashi, and it's currently about, it's got to be getting near to about 4 meters tall. Now this was one that we brought from the previous property, so it's quite mature when we put it in, but really it was it was only about 2 meters tall. And look at it now, absolutely superb. Hasn't flowered yet, did get knocked back last year in a storm. In fact, yeah, storm last year, the whole thing just snapped. Both those main trunks snapped, and they had to be dealt with, chopped them right back. But despite the cold winter we had -6, -7 degrees over winter, it came back and it's done really well. Although we've not yet had any flower or the fruit, but hopefully next year it will be mature enough to start doing that for us. But there you go, it's quite a deep border. Why not? You know, it's we've got a few interesting plants in here. We have got a little tree fern, we have got a tree dahlia, Dahlia imperialis, we've got an Abyssinian banana over there, and if you've got those with good eyes will spot that there's a Swiss cheese plant there, and we've got a couple of those in the garden because they are surprisingly hardy. Swiss cheese plants hardy, I hear you say. Of course they're not. Well, I'll beg to differ, because anecdotally in London they have got Swiss cheese plants, the old Monstera deliciosa, growing as a common mean plant on some of the larger buildings. But don't forget that London is a heat island. It traps the sun into the concrete, releases it during the night, so it doesn't get as cold as the rest of the country, and as such it has more of a temperate kind of climate there, and that is why in London you get these growing. But we've had this outside for most of last year. I did bring it indoors when it got too cold, but it is known to tolerate a couple of degrees of frost for short periods only, so they are surprisingly hardy. Not that you'll see that in the books, that is just from us growing it and passing that information along. Anyway, let's have another look at some of these other beds. It's a lovely little phormium. This bed we actually only planted up about 3-4 months ago, so this isn't even a year old, and that's why it's quite small. There's another tree dahlia in there. It is not as big as the one we just saw, and I think that's mainly because it's kind of split into 2 stems, so it hasn't got as big. It's only about 3.5 feet tall. But you know, I do like the Ricinus. This one here, this is a cultivar called Impala, and we grew these from seeds earlier in the year, and they grow, well, they germinate really fast. Within a week I started having the first seeds germinating, and look at that, a really lovely colour. And the thing is, I also really like these red seed pods. They're quite striking. I really enjoy those. So that's the apple tree I was talking about earlier, and we crown lifted that up to about 2.5 meters, so that firstly I don't bang my head on the branches, and secondly I wanted to get some light, so we get the lawn growing up to the tree and we get some light in this exotic border. But one of the things I like to do, and which my wife has now told me that I can't do anymore, is I do like to hang tropical plants in the canopy to try and give that kind of South American epiphytic kind of look to it. I do quite like that. And this here, this is a lovely little thing. This was we got this from cuttings, and only put that put those in I think around about January time. This is the Bolivian forest cactus. I'll put up the botanical name for that. I can't pronounce it, it's a bit bizarre, but it's really come along. Like I say, there's a couple of cuttings, and then within a year that's kind of doing its thing. Looks like a big Rastafarian. Brilliant. I really love that. And then over here, you'll know what this is anyway. This is the old spider plant, you know, Chlorophytum comosum. And we put this in a hang basket, and I do like it. I do find the plant a bit boring, especially in a pot on a windowsill, looking a bit sad. But you know, in the tree with all these new pups hanging off it, you know, it's fantastic. Really, really pleased with that. Now, if you haven't seen one of these before, you are in for a treat, because this is a plant we only came across last year. We had a little trip out to Madeira to look at the gardens, and everyone had one of these plants in them. We didn't recognise it at all, because look at the leaves, look at the size of these leaves. But it is indeed a fuchsia boliviana, obviously from Bolivia, and it is surprisingly tough. It wants to be in cool conditions, it wants to be in the shade, and so this is where we put it. We put it under the apple tree, kept it watered, likes the soil sort of fairly damp, and it's flowered from a cutting early this year. Really, really pleased with that. I mean, if you're looking for a plant for an exotic garden, then this one's absolutely superb. Now, this was one of the stars of the garden, albeit a few months ago. This is the old glory lily, Gloriosa, I think it's superba. And surprised really, this time of year, we do have one last flower. I mean, look how exotic is that. I mean, you really can't find, you know, a plant that looks better than that, you know, that you can grow in this country. What I'll do is I will have a little bit of footage of this when it was in full flower, and it looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it's almost as though the plant is on fire. And yes, it's not hardy, and yes, you got to get those tubers and lift them in. But to be honest with you, I think it's well worth it, and we'll certainly be bringing these in over winter and putting it out again in the spring for another fantastic display. Now, this is one of the focal points of the garden that we see from the old kitchen window. It's a shame it's an overcast day, but then again, it is England, it is mostly overcast. You can see in the distance as that sort of border goes up and up and up. We put some more hanging baskets in the tree to try and give that exotic look. But to start with, we've got a lovely cycad here that threw out so many new fronds this year. Absolutely brilliant. Oh, and there's a banana, hardy banana. That'll be protected but left outside. And there's a few interesting parts here. We've got there's old Brugmansia. It's coming to the end of September, but you can see here still got some a lot of new flower buds really. So I'm expecting that to be in full flower by the end of the month. And we've got a nice little what would that be? That would be an Alocasia, and it's just starting to get some size on its leaves. You know, they're quite easy to keep once they do start growing. Just keep them moist, keep them in semi-shade, and they'll be absolutely fine. The old giant hosta, it's looking a bit tired now for the end of the year. There's a Tropicana cultivar of Canna, and then there's I suppose a medium to small size tree fern. I'm a big fan of tree ferns. I know they're not really tropical, but they do give that sort of tropical look. Now, there's two plants that I've really enjoyed here. This is a Ricinus communis, and this is a cultivar called Red, so called because of these stems and branches are red, and when the sun's on that, which it's not, as I said, then that's really quite striking. And this here, I do like this because it gives the kind of effect of Spanish moss, although it does need to grow in its own pot. It's not an epiphyte like Spanish moss, but that's Dichondra argentea silver falls, so I'm a big fan of that. And over here we've got a few more plants that we're going to be putting in the garden. We've got an agave here, it's a bit knocked about, but once that gets planted up, that'll be absolutely fine. And there's a eucomis, the old pineapple lily, and that will be that's Indian summer, that cultivar, Indian summer. Now this fella here, this is a great choice. So it's under a tree, it's in a shady area, and despite being shady, it has this wonderful white variegation that really stands out from a distance. So whereas a lot of shade-loving plants like your boring ferns, boring hostas, they all tend to be a little bit green or dark yellow, they don't really show up, but this one, absolutely superb. And it's evergreen too, so it'll be there all the time. Brilliant choice. So there you have it. That is most of the plants in the garden of interest. There are others in there that we can talk about in later videos, and that's what we've managed to achieve in a single year. So if you've got any thoughts, got any comments, we would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.